Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to keep moving on with this week's theme of great orchestral music use, or great orchestral use of instruments, and we're going to be looking at our first Radiohead track. And I know a lot of people have been asking for this, it's been a big one, and we're finally going to get Radiohead on the channel, even if it's not necessarily the song that I think a lot of people would be expecting or wanting for my introduction to the band. However, that's just how things ended up. So, let's get into this. We're going to listen to some Radiohead's Burn the Witch. Yeah, really interesting mix there between the lightness of the strings and then that just real gritty, dirty synth. Lots of control in the vocals. Yeah. So really utilizing these string instruments to the full extent of their capabilities, pulling almost all of the different types of attacks that they can utilize for their notes into this. Yeah, so some nice crescendos and decrescendos here on those string hits. This is a low-flying panic attack. Sing a song of sixpence that goes. Yeah, so that's interesting, having the lead-in tone on the offbeat of 4. Very haunting vocals, and I love the juxtaposition there between the quick rhythmic aspect in everything else and then these long held out slurred notes. The vocals. Yeah, this is so... All right, very interesting. Lots of stuff to talk about. Lots of stuff to talk about. Um, so for the all right, so looking at the theme of orchestral instruments being utilized well inside of non-classical music, I think this is a very good juxtaposition to what we saw yesterday. So, yesterday we checked out a full orchestra being utilized for more than just its textural elements, that they were bringing in classical composition techniques into the writing and sort of raising the metal aspect up, not just through a widening of the sound or the regalness of strings and brass, but also rounding out the composition and creating counterpoints and just bringing in all of these nice classical elements of composition in with the classical instruments. And this, like I said, is a really good um, sort of other side of the coin there, where it's not so much about bringing in techniques from the composition that these instruments, the violin and cello, I want to say, um, anyways, not bringing in the composition from where these instruments tend to be heard from, not bringing in that classical element, but just utilizing these instruments for, what they can bring to the table. And part of that is the plucking. It is I think the technique is when you actually hit the bow onto the string rather than, pulling the bow across it. And it's sort of like a pluck, but it has a harsher attack to it, but you still get that real short staccato-ness. It just has a nicer attack to it. So we're bringing in multiple styles of playing these instruments, and it's not just holding out these long notes to create that extra width or give that sound of classical music that we tend to hear when these instruments are introduced to rock and metal tracks. They, whoever composed this, understands what these instruments can do in their full capacity. They understand they are not just bowed instruments. They can be plucked, they can be picked, they can be struck, and they can get some real nice percussive elements out of it by utilizing things this way. And I I'm pretty sure we have the bow strike, I think there's some plucking or some finger picking going on in there. And then of course there are a couple of segments where we hear long drawn out bowed notes from the strings as well. And like I said, whoever composed this has a very strong understanding of what these instruments are capable of and really utilizing them to bring new sounds, new ideas into this rock track that cannot be created with the instruments we typically see in rock. Even though the guitar is a stringed instrument and we can finger pick it, we can't bow it, and we can't do these bow strikes on it to get these real nice percussive like thumps. Um, so yeah, and then of course they just have these very powerful, uh, acoustic tones to them, very warm, that electric guitars tend to not have, at least acoustically. Once you plug them in to an amp and a cab, you really modulate and pick your tone. So yeah, so it's really cool to see them bring in all these different elements. Um, and it's just, like I said, it's a fantastic other side of the coin. Instead of understanding the compositional techniques of the classical music, they understand the multiple types of playing techniques of the instruments. So, yeah, 100%. I'm glad this got picked for the week. Just, it's awesome that it was back to back with Dimmu Borgir because it's just a perfect other side of the coin, like I said. Now, as for the song itself, um, I mentioned the contrast that's in here, and I want to bring that up again. Um, it is really smart, I think, to basically jam these long, drawn out, um, slurred vocals especially in the chorus, and just ramming that right up against more of the percussive elements that are coming out from the drums, from the strings when they aren't doing their bowed playing. Um, and it's just this real strong contrast that creates some tension and unease that is only amplified by the note choices against the chordal structure going on as well, that adds an extra level of tension. I don't think there is any confusion that this song is supposed to represent something below the surface that is not quite right. Um, when the song started, we had some nice work going on. It wasn't completely cheery and upbeat and happy, but it definitely was not anything that we saw closer to the end, which was, we'll get to that, but that was chaotic and lots of dissonance in there. So we had a journey from the beginning to the end. And part of that journey was adding tension so that the ending didn't seem out of place. And that tension came from multiple places. First, they started playing around with notes, coloring outside the lines a little bit, picking some notes that kind of ground against some of the chordal work that was going on, creating some dissonance in the harmony. But then we also have the contrasting rhythmic ideas that I just mentioned between the vocals and the rest of the band, and that starts to really grate. And it amplifies both sides. The rhythmic aspects become more rhythmic when compared to the vocals, and then, of course, the non pitchiness of the vocals, the slurring and the long sloping between the notes. There isn't really specific notes, I would say, that are sung. It is these massive slides. And he just masterfully, takes his voice and just slowly transforms it higher or lower to hit these. Sometimes with little waves, maybe he'll go up and come down a little bit to land on the note that he wants rather than just a linear slide into it. And yeah, this all this tension is just introduced on a rhythmic scale, on a harmonic scale. I would even say that the vocal delivery creates tension because it's very inhuman. We don't tend to slide between notes across long pitches like this, long notes. Yeah, we don't slide between pitches on long notes like this in typical speech. Even in a lot of singing, we tend to not do this. This is a very foreign technique, at least for English speakers. I'm not sure about every language. But in English, which is what the song was sung in, it is very unusual and uncharacteristic of the language to do that. So there's also something inhuman or just tense about the vocal delivery there as well. And all of it culminates in the end when we go out on this just drastically chaotic, tense feeling before fading into the nature and the bird chirping and all that. I don't know if that is part of the song itself or if that was added for the music video, but I do enjoy how it bookends the track. How we have that nature and the bird chirping at the beginning and then the end. Um, I just think it's. I could be reading into this, but I like the idea that the evils of man don't really do much for nature, and uh, basically, if we extrapolated this to the entirety of the human condition, before humanity we had nature, and after humanity's evils we will still have nature. Nothing will have changed. The earth will repair itself. That's probably not what they were going for at all. Like I said, I'm probably reading a bit into that. But yeah, I do like how the beauty of nature bookends this monstrous feat of going on a witch hunt. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I don't know Radiohead for anything except their most popular track. I've only heard their radio stuff. I don't even I can't even think of which one I might have heard. Creep. Okay, so I've heard Creep. And so I've heard Creep. That's probably all I've heard. So I know that they can dig into these sort of atmospheric, kind of creepy, tense tracks. But I also did not know they were still around. Like, this is a 2016 track, I believe. Yeah, 2016. So it kind of blows my mind that I've always just thought of him as a 90s band. So it's really cool. I've had a couple people correct me um, for a while now. That they're still around, that they create great music, and that I'm really missing out by only having heard Creep. But yeah, I think everybody's right. If this is what they're doing now, and I enjoy Creep, it's kind of overplayed, and I've heard it most of my life by now. It's not like I go out of my way to listen to it, but it's an enjoyable track that does what it sets out to do. And this, which is just really interesting as far as coming at it from a rock perspective and seeing just the immense understanding of these string instruments and how to utilize them, and then just seeing these underlying ideas of tension and then applying tension in different ways. It's just really good composition, and I can't wait to dig into more, and I'm sure everybody in the comments is going to go, yes, finally, of course you want to dig into more. We've been telling you forever, and yeah, I get it now. um, but those are my thoughts on Radiohead's Burn the Witch. This is where you guys come in, though. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this, if it bounced off you, if there's anything I missed. Let me know if I was just reading way into it with that whole nature thing. Um, and of course, more Radiohead suggestions. Above the comments section is a description box with some links for stuff adjacent to the channel. Maybe you want to help support the channel through Patreon. Maybe you want to chat with me and the rest of the community in Discord. Maybe you just want to see the stuff I tweet out on Twitter. All sorts of links are in there for you to find. Below that, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual, continuing on with this week's theme. Until next time, remember to be critical, never cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.